Welcome to Punchline Talks Politics, a special election Huston. This is part 3. I'm Mark Owen, editor and owner of PunchlineGloucester.com. Today I'm joined in the studio with Ian Mean, director of Business West and ex-editor of the Citizen, Echo and Western Daily Press. Over the next hour, we'll be quizzing Gloucester's election candidates from the 3 main political parties. I'd like to welcome Richard Graham, Conservative, Rebecca Trimnell, Liberal Democrats, and Alex McIntyre from the Labour Party. Just like to thank our sponsors, Business West. We'll be splitting the hour into 4 different segments of 15-minute rounds. Each round, we pull a colour of the party out of the hat to see who will start first. Okay, different question. So we'll see who will start. Just put it out first, and I'll ask the question first of all. If you want to hold it up, Rich, you'll need to hold it up so they can see that we're not. Thank you. Right, Rebecca. In this section, we'd like each of you to ask a question of each other. You have 3 minutes each to answer the question. So, Rebecca, you can ask each one of the other candidates a question each, okay? And then, guys, you have 3 minutes or 2 minutes, no, 2 minutes to answer the question. Does that make sense? So, I know it's a bit of a curveball, but we'll start with you, Rebecca. And what would you like to ask?
Okay, so if I could ask Alex first. For someone who doesn't know Gloucester very much because you don't live in Gloucester, and I'm not quite sure what links you have, maybe you'd like to tell us what links you have to Gloucester and why you feel that you could have the energy and enthusiasm in a city that you really don't know about.
Thanks, Rebecca, to answer that question. So I live in Cam with my wife and my little boy. It's just down the A38, 15 minutes down the road. My little boy spent his first night in the hospital here in our city. We share our public services. I am a season ticket holder at the rugby club and at the football club, where I'm now a part owner through the Supporters Trust, and excited for the next season because last season was dreadful, unfortunately, for us. I have been, since I was selected as the candidate, and even before then, knocking on doors across our city, working really hard to find out what's important to Gloucester residents, because that's what our politicians need to be doing, is listening to our residents, understanding their concerns, and realising it's not about ourselves, it's about the city and our communities. And that's what I've promised to do throughout. I've knocked on more than 40,000 doors across our city in the last 2 and a bit years. I'm trying to get around every single house, but I'm only one person. I've also obviously had to work while being a candidate as well. But I will continue to work really hard, and I've already promised that I'll be moving to the city after the election. I would have been here already, but obviously with a 7-month-old boy at home, I didn't want to put too much pressure on my wife and ask her to do too many things in a short space of time. But we'll be here in the city. We're here all the time anyway. My wife would tell you I live here already from the amount of time I spend in Gloucester. And you know what? I've got the energy, I've got the drive, I've got the ambition for our city to be a really good representative of everyone in our city and make sure that everyone has the best opportunities here in our city.
Okay, Alex, running out of time there. Thank you very much. Okay, Rebecca, what would you like to ask Richard, please?
Okay, could I just ask Richard, you've been a long time an MP in Gloucester, and I just wanted to know, have you got any regrets, or in looking in hindsight, have you got any kind of, I suppose regrets to what you would have done differently as an MP?
Well, it's a typically thoughtful question, Rebecca, and you and I have known each other for a while. We both live in the city centre, so we know the wide range of challenges that anyone representing citizens in Gloucester faces, whether it's on the City Council, the County Council, or indeed as MP. I think if I have any regrets at all, it's that my natural instinct is to try and bring about consensus, to try and work with all types of different people, totally regardless of what their political views are, what the size of their business is, what their challenges as a big or small community group are, and try and do that through bringing people together. But there are times when that won't always work. And there are times when you have to lay out a position and absolutely stick to it. I did that on the whole business of the Labour plan to build 3,200 houses at Wadden. Back in 2009, we stood in a field with a great big poster that said, "Just say no." And my opponent at that time, the former Labour MP, who, by the way, never visited businesses at all. I just checked our own records. I visited 267 formal visits while I've been MP, regardless of all the informal ones. This was actually something where he was a minister in the department that came up with this plan, but he never announced it to anybody in Gloucester until we uncovered it. And the strength of the view that I took on that issue was because I was really furious with the way that this was being introduced through deception, through the regional development plan, not openly, not in a discussion with the people of Gloucester. And I think there have been one or two issues where if I'd taken a stronger, more passionate view, we might have been able to get people together in the same direction faster. And a good example of that would probably be the regeneration plan in Matson. You'll remember that I drew up this plan with Gloucester City Homes for Podsmead and Matson almost a decade ago, but we couldn't get it through Matson. There was just no consensus there between Labour councillors, community groups and other residents. We have achieved that in Podsmead, and it's a good example, I hope, when it's done, of what can be achieved later in Matson.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Right, it will be the next candidate to ask their opponents. So it's Alex. Who would you like to ask the question first to? And they'll have again 2 minutes to answer.
I'll ask Richard. Richard, you know that trust in politics and politicians has been an all-time low, and I'm sure if you're knocking on doors, you'll hear that people are frustrated with politicians. Which of Partygate, scandal PPE contracts, Tory MPs betting on the election date, do you think has had the biggest impact on trust in our politics? And do you still believe Rishi Sunak when he said he was going to restore integrity in our politics? Oh, and sorry, supplemental, can I just say, have you accepted any money from Conservative Party HQ that has been donated by Frank Heston, who obviously was quoted as saying, Diane Abbott makes you hate all black women and she should be shot?
Gosh, well, look, Alex, first of all, integrity is absolutely crucial. One of the things my predecessor, the former Labour MP, I'm afraid, came unstuck on was the fact that he did things like charging his Remembrance Day wreaths to the taxpayer, as well as having a whole series of unnecessary expenses in his flat in London also charged to the taxpayer. So yes, all that sleaze in Parliament from all parties before 2010 was one of the reasons why I said when I got elected that firstly, I would not take any paid employment from anybody else for as long as I was MP. And secondly, that I would cut the costs of being the MP for Gloucester by at least 20% over that first Parliament, which I achieved. I cost the taxpayer here in Gloucester 25% less than my predecessor had done. So yes, integrity does matter. And that's why over the 14 years that I've been MP, there has been no scandal, absolutely no criticism on integrity of me whatsoever. And I do find that reflected on the doorstep, as I'm sure you do too. But if you're talking about mistakes that have been made by others in Parliament from all parties and betting by others on themselves by members of all parties, then yes, I agree. It shouldn't happen. I've never done it. I never would do it. It's not necessarily illegal, by the way, but it's not something that feels right by most people. And when I entered politics, when I stood there in Parliament on my first day, David Cameron said to all of us, I want you to do two things. One, stick by the rules at all time. And two, remember the Daily Mail smell test. It might be legal, but what are your constituents going to think about it? Those are the principles by which I've lived, the Nolan principles. And by the way, if I hadn't, I do not think the new king would have honoured me in his first New Year's honours list. So it is about integrity, but the difference between someone who's never been in a serious elected position and talks a good story on integrity and the integrity of someone who's been MP for 14 years is a vast ocean.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the same question then. Sorry, Alex, you've now got an opportunity to ask Rebecca a question.
Yes, Rebecca. Obviously, you were successful in winning the Westgate by-election this year, or last year, sorry, apologies. Will you be resigning as the councillor for Westgate if you're elected as the MP for Gloucester?
It's an interesting question, Alex, and one that has been asked of me only today, actually. And, you know, it has been my dream to be an MP and a dream to be an MP for Gloucester, where I'm standing now. I was thrilled to be elected as a councillor in the by-election, and some Conservative propaganda, may I just say, did actually state that I was standing as a parliamentary candidate and that I may even trigger a £10,000 by-election if I was to win as if I was to be elected as an MP. The honest answer is I don't know yet, because technically I can still stay as a city councillor, and I think that would give me an amazing opportunity to really not only work for the entire city of Gloucester as an MP, but also I would have strength as a councillor in the Westgate ward as well. So I can't really answer your question at the moment, and I just look towards what's happening on polling day, and God willing, if I'm elected, then I will have a very difficult choice to make then at the time. Thanks, Alex.
Okay, well, it has to be you, Richard. The opportunity to ask either one of the others. Who would you like to ask first?
Well, it's a rather unusual experience about asking questions of other candidates, but I guess from the listener's point of view, anything that helps understand more about where the candidates is coming from can be helpful. So I guess my question first to Rebecca would be, what is it about being MP that makes you want to stand as a candidate?
Yes, thanks for your question, Richard. And it's quite a hard one, actually, because sometimes people have said to me, why would you, in a really downtrodden term, why would you want to stand as MP? It's stressful, you get a lot of grief, this and this. And I think it's all about being a public servant, and it's about making a difference. I was born in the April 1979. Margaret Thatcher came into being in the May of 1979. Although I'm a Liberal Democrat, I'm very much in the fact that she was a strong woman politician. She was a great role model to me, actually, in growing up, because I saw something in her which I really respected, and she was very sort of in her public service, in her public duty, and I feel that that's something that has really stayed with me. And so really, simply to answer your question, Richard, is that it has been in my blood to want to be in politics. I've gone through the academic of politics, and now I'm going through the political activism of politics. And I just think there is so much difference you can make to people's lives, and you can certainly be the voice of the most vulnerable and of the residents that you're representing. So that's pretty much the reason why I would why I would love to be elected as an MP.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Well, Richard, it's your opportunity to ask Alex a question.
Alex, hi. You are a young man on the make. You're ambitious to become an elected MP after a very brief experience, I believe, as a councillor in Dursley. And we should relish ambitious people who want to try and achieve great things. But when I've looked through your literature that's come through my door, I don't see any reference to Gloucester at all. Every bit of it is just prototype copy straight from Labour head office, almost with the words insert constituency name here. There is no reference to anything particular that you would actually do in Gloucester. Why is that? And what gives you, do you think, the right to tell Gloucester how you're going to transform this place and make it better without actually having ever done anything here yourself?
Well, Richard, the honest answer is I don't get my leaflets written for me. That would make my give me more time on my hands to go out and speak to people. But what's really important is that I've been out and speaking to residents about what's important to them, and everything on my leaflets has been reflected back to me on the doorstep. And just look at that in the priorities that we've set out. Tackling the cost of living crisis. If you don't think that's a Gloucester issue, Richard, you haven't been knocking on the same doors that I have been, because families across our city are still struggling. You may say inflation is down and that growth is up, but people aren't feeling that in their pockets. People are choosing between heating their homes and feeding their children. That's exactly the choices that families in this city have told me that they're making. We've got to tackle NHS waiting lists. Again, if that's not a Gloucester issue, then again, that is what's coming up on the doorsteps, Richard. There are thousands of people, thousands of Gloucester residents waiting for appointments, struggling to see their GP and dentist because of the issues that we face in our NHS. Tackling crime and antisocial behaviour is my third pledge. Again, that is a massive issue here in our city. Speak to any of the shop owners down on the Gate Streets about antisocial behaviour, shoplifting that seems to have been decriminalised under the Conservative. The issues that we have with attacks on shopkeepers. We know this is a massive issue. Families don't feel safe coming out into the city centre or out on their streets, and that's issues that have come up across our city directly from conversations I've had with residents. So yes, these are issues facing Gloucester. They are national issues as well, because we've had 14 years of a Conservative government that has led us into this position. But these are issues that are facing every family here in our city, and to say that that's not the case is simply just not true, Richard.
Well, I'd be very happy to respond to that, but that may not be part of this programme.
Unfortunately, it was one question. What do you? Oh, I was asking my colleague there what he thinks.
I think
no one else has. So
I think it would be
unfair
if we started doing that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that is the end of this particular section. Thank you all ever so much. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Just like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our candidates. Thank our sponsors, Business West. This is the end of part 3, and we'll be back very shortly for part 4. Thank you.